Welcome to the Middleware Tech YouTube channel. In this series, you'll learn about REST Web Service. All code examples used in the videos will be available on GitHub. Let's get started.
Full name is representational state transfer. Okay, so this REST web service, as I told, let me write one by one, is one of the you can say that synchronous web service. Now see, still now whatever we have done, we talked about the SOAP web service. Now we're moving to REST web service. So we should do some comparison, first point. So we should understand why I'll go for REST web service, why not SOAP. Just now, whatever the examples we are doing from last 2 days, those are all SOAP web service. Now we are moving to REST web service. Now we should know why I'll go for REST web service, why not SOAP, and some comparison between SOAP and REST, right? So those things we'll do one by one, right? So first point is that first point about REST web service, I told you that it is one of the synchronous web service. SOAP is also one synchronous web service, right? We talked about SOAP web service. So it is also one type of synchronous web service. Both is an examples of synchronous web service, right? Okay. Now the SOAP web service actually created by Roy Fielding. SOAP web service, it is created by Roy Fielding. So how we can define the concept of REST is that REST is said to be as an architectural style. It is called architectural style. Architectural style. What does it mean by this architectural style? See, there is some architectural style is also there, like SOA, you know, service-oriented architecture. It is one type of architectural style. REST is one type of architectural style. Architectural style is not fully a framework or pattern. Architectural style, something that some decision to take or set of guidelines to follow, that is defined as architectural style. As for example, we say that REST is can I say REST is a framework or pattern? No, we define REST as an architectural style. So architectural style means some rules I have to follow to get some output. So some guidelines I have to follow to get some output. Same, SOA is also one type of architectural style. So some guidelines I have to follow so that I can manage, I can have centralized control for my web service. So it is one type of REST is defined as an architectural style, or we use a particular term. Architecture is defined as like that, some decision to take, or some guidelines to follow. So this is defined as an architectural style, that you will say some decision to take or some guidelines to follow. This concept is being the idea behind architectural style, that we can say. Fine. Right. So this SOAP REST, this REST architectural style, when I apply this REST architectural style on web service, When I apply this REST architecture in web service, then we define it as a RESTful web service. RESTful web service. When I apply this architecture or style on web service, then it becomes a RESTful web service. And RESTful web service has another one. RESTful web service has another one meaning. RESTful web service has another one meaning. The meaning is that the RESTful web service is defined as web API. Okay, so this RESTful web service is also defined as web API. You may, if you go within a technical documentation and a specification, you may find this web API concept. So RESTful web service is called web API. So when you apply this REST architectural style on the web service, then we say it is a RESTful web service. And in technical documentation, you may get this term called web API. It's very much familiar terms. Right, if you find Facebook, Google, they publish some services, so developers can access them as a web service. So whatever the services you find in Facebook, Google, most of the services you'll find they are implemented with RESTful web service. Okay. So in case of RESTful web service, so before coming to RESTful web service, we should follow some comparison between REST and SOAP. Comparison in the sense where I'm using SOAP web service, I have SOAP web service, we have to follow some SOAP. If you are going to follow SOAP web service, then we have to use some SOAP protocol. SOAP protocol. SOAP protocol. We have to use SOAP protocol, or in case of SOAP based web service, right? That will work above HTTP. Right, but in case of REST web service, there is no specific protocol like this. It will use HTTP verbs. If you know that HTTP specification, since we have done in our simple web application and servlets, it will follow some HTTP specification. And HTTP specification, you have multiple verbs like get, post, put, delete, option. So REST will use those HTTP verbs to transfer data from using REST web service. So in case of SOAP web service, it is using SOAP protocol as a web service protocol to exchange data. But in case of REST web service, it is not using any specific protocol like that. It will use HTTP verb. HTTP verb means the verbs as per HTTP API specification. We can use get, put, delete, post, right? So we can use these verbs, right? Get, put. So those are called HTTP verbs. Now we have to know how we can use those HTTP verbs. What are the different HTTP verbs and we can use in REST API, and how we can use those HTTP verbs, that we have to know in details. Right now, if you think about SOAP web service, in the SOAP web service, we'll use one of the WSDL file. What is the WSDL file? WSDL. In SOAP web service, you are using WSDL file, WSDL, your service definition language. And when you're going to exchange any data from the client to server, or consumer to provider, when you're going to exchange some data, you have to follow SOAP API specification or WSDL API specification. That is mandatory, right? Whereas in case of REST, you don't have to follow any specific specification like this. But in case of SOAP, if you are using WSDL, then in case of REST, you have to follow one of the specification as WADL. We'll come about WADL. This is another specification that we used for REST web service. Another thing is that in case of SOAP web service, how we can implement using what are the API specification we use for SOAP web service. API specification like JAX RPC, JAX WS. These are the API specification we use these are the API specification, JAX RPC and JAX WS. So these are the API specification I use to implement SOAP web service, right? API. Whereas in case of REST web service, we use the API specification. Its name is JAX RS. We use JAX RS API specification in case of REST web service. Okay, we use JAX RS API specification in case of REST web service. Now we know already, right? We talked about last day, right? What are the different provider for this API specification, right? Similarly, we have different providers for JAX RS API specifications also. So you have to see what are the different API, different provider is there, implementation provider for JAX RS API specification, and we have to use any one of the provider to implement our web service, right? As we have used any one of the provider, like in case of JAX RPC, we have used the provider called Axis One from Apache. In case of JAX RS, we have used JAX WS, we have used JAX WS RI specification from Sun, right? These two specification we have used, right? So similarly, for these JAX RS API specification, we use one of the implementation provider, like we have Jersey implementation provider. Then we have RESTlet implementation provider, right? So we have multiple implementation provider on JAX RS API specification also. So we have to talk about those implementation provider for REST, right? So I'm just saying the comparison between the SOAP web service and REST web service. What is the comparison between them, right? And in case of SOAP web service, you can exchange the data, and most of the data is XML format. In case of SOAP web service, you are going to exchange the data in XML format. But in case of REST web service, you can exchange the data in XML and JSON. But it is always acceptable that 90% it will go for JSON implementation. So if you remember last we talked about the difference between XML and JSON. The JSON is much more lightweight, right? Where you, in case of JSON data, you don't have to separate, you don't have to maintain any version. You don't have to think about the well formness. You don't have to maintain any namespace. You don't have to maintain any data types, right? Neither you don't have to maintain any separate file as a standard of right. So that is the advantage of JSON above XML, and REST API you'll always use JSON to exchange the data from producer to consumer, consumer to producer, right? Okay. So these are some of the comparison we talked about SOAP and REST. So from the future point of view, if you want to see any applications, so REST is much more acceptable in the industry above SOAP because of its lightweight natures, because of its much user-friendly nature. Okay. So we have to understand how we can use REST API. Using REST, how we can create our own API to handle a particular operation, right? So we have to understand, we have to focus on REST much more in detail. So let's move with REST one by one. Next, another one features of REST is defined as resource based. REST is called resource based. So we should know what does it mean by resource based. REST is called resource based. This is one of the technical term we use. Control C, REST is called REST is resource based. So what does it mean by this, right? So let's understand this idea, resource based idea. See, what does it mean by resource first? First of all, resource means, if I'm going to, what I'm going to do, I wanted to create my own API using REST. I want to create my own API using REST for my application. Fine. So whatever the application, it is shopping application, or it is your online portal, or it's a banking application, or any insurance project, whatever it is, I wanted to create my API using REST. Now, if I want to create my API using REST, then first in the problem domain, we have to identify what are the different noun is there. Noun. So we have to. So if you want to go for resource-based REST implementation, we have to identify what are the different noun is available. Okay, because those nouns is defined as a resource in the REST-based approach, right? So, right, noun or entity. Sometimes we can say employee, entity, right? So we can define it as a resource. Okay, department, location. So that is defined as a resource, right? So before moving to that resource concept, so what I want to say that we talked about examples of website, how we can write website. Take an example of website www.atos.net, right? Slash career slash Bangalore, right? Right. Right. So I can write a particular website like this, or you can write assume I want to see all the career option in Bangalore location, right? For a particular job code equal to 1 2 3 4. So for that particular job code, I want to see the career approach in Bangalore location from this website, right? So if I want to see this, what does it mean? The meaning, this is a simple website. So what does it mean by this? Is that that for this job ID 1234, okay, I need all the career option available in Bangalore location for Atos, right? So if this is a website, so what does it mean? I want to say that please provide me all the job details that is available in the Bangalore location for, right? So this is one type of, defined it as an action based. It is called action based. I'm saying that please provide me all the job details that is available in Bangalore for this job ID this, or job code is this. So for this job code, you can have multiple available opportunities. So this is how we can define it. So this is called action based. It is one type of instruction. I'm saying that please provide it, right? Then what is defined as a resource based? Resource based. How you can define the concept of resource based? Resource based, we define it that like this. If I want to write the resource based URL, www.atos.net slash Bangalore slash job code slash 1234. So if I write like this, what does it mean is that the details is already available. If I write it in the end of the URL, then it will be available to me. So this is called resource-based URI approach, where the things is like written like this, that the details is already available there. If I write this ID at the end, I'll get the details immediately. So that's why these details is being defined like this, so that if you provide the number in between, based on the number what is available, it will be available immediately. It is already there. The meaning is defined like this, that it is already there. If you write the number, it will be visible to you. So that's why this concept is called resource based. Okay. So this is concept is called resource based. Okay, let me understand using some more example. This idea is called resource based URI. So let's understand it with some more example, how we can define this concept of resource based URI. So see here, see, uh, let's see in a particular organization, in the team, let's see, we have total 15 team member. Team member. So we have total 15 team members in a particular organization, in a particular team for a particular project. You think about long back means 20 years back, how we maintain the details of each team member. Just 20 years back or 15 years back, how generally we maintain the details of all the team members. It will be maintained like this. Maintain means we want to maintain the details about each employees in the team. So how we'll maintain it? Like it will be like this. So assume the team is related to development team. Okay, so you have separate folder, right? Sales, right? So then another folder we can define for corporate sales, retail sales, like this we define, right? Then admin. These are different team name, right? So under each team, all the profiles is there. For development team, who is working in the development team, and their resumes is defined inside this, right? Their resume is defined inside this. Similarly, who is there in the sales team, their resume is defined inside this folder, right? So like this way, we have multiple folders we can define for each group, and their resumes I can define inside these folders. So here, who are the team members, we can create a folder, and their resumes we can define inside this, right? So what I want to mean is that I want to saying about a static web page. How we can define a static web page? Static web page. Static web page in the sense for the development team, or assume for the admin team, whoever it is, Control C. So for this admin team, I have one of the profile. His name is Srinivas.html. And in the admin team, I have another one profile. His name is Navin.html. Then we have another one profile. His name is Karthik.html. How we can define all the static pages for each and every profile? So then we can define another profile like Srini.html. So like this way, different member profile is there. So how for separate HTML, we can define for all the team members in the admin department. Now, if I want to see any team member profile, then what I'll do? http://atos.net/bangalore/ then we can write here Srinivas.html. So if I write like this, Srinivas.html, then I can see the Srinivas details, right? No, I want to get the details of Navin. So you have to write that Navin HTML. So the person whose details you want to know, so I have to add his HTML, because one HTML is defined for him, right? And if you provide the corresponding HTML at the end, I can see his details. This is one type of approach called action based that we do in our static web page approach. But what we are talking about in REST implementation, I'm saying that no, we don't have to provide the HTML pages. We just provide the name of the employee at the end. Just if you provide the name, when you provide the name, details are already there, it will select and make visible to you. So not like this static HTML approach. In case of REST implementation, it is saying that just provide the name at the end of the URL, so details will be available to you. Right? So that's why we talked about it's a resource-based URI. So that's what we're talking about. REST use the concept of resource-based URI. So resource-based URI, it is one type of noun. Sometimes resources can be plural. So we use the concept to identify particular resource, and it is not connected to the particular framework. Okay. So let's try to understand these resource-based URI concept with the HTTP verbs. So it will support, and your REST will support the concept of HTTP verbs also, right? HTTP verb. Let's understand resource-based URI with the help of HTTP verb. Resource-based URI using HTTP verb. Control C. Resource-based URI using HTTP verb. So what does it mean by resource-based URI using HTTP verb? What does it mean by resource-based URI using HTTP verb? Is that this REST, we're talking about REST web service, right? So this REST web service is not using any particular protocol like SOAP. It is using the HTTP verb to exchange the data from one system to another system. What are the HTTP verbs? It's using the HTTP verbs like get, post, put, delete. These are some of the HTTP verbs. Okay, so it is using these HTTP verbs to exchange the data with or to implement a database operation. It is using these HTTP verbs. Now we have to know how REST is using these HTTP verbs and what are the meaning of each HTTP verbs. How REST is implementing operation using these HTTP verbs, and what are the how REST is using these HTTP verbs in case of resource-based URI approach, right? So let's see one example to understand this, right? So assume I have a collections of resume, okay, in the database. So what I want is that what is the use of get? Let's understand what is the use of get. So how what is the so the thing is that so let's see. I want to create one resume inside the team admin. Okay, so http:// net / Bangalore / group admin / now what I want to get so here I can write resume ID RESUME resume / resume ID fine. Okay, so resume ID equal to 20. Okay, so I wanted to get the details about resume ID 20. Sorry, I want to get the details about resume ID 20. This is the website approach. Okay, this is how we do in the website approach. Just getting a separation. I want to get details about resume ID 20 on department admin. for a particular employee. Right? So it's generally write like this. This is a website approach or action based. But if I want to write resource based, what I'll write? If I want to write resource based, then I have to use here one slash. Here I have to control Z. Let me write it once again. If I am going to write resource based, how I'll write? Control C, Control V, and 20. So what does it? This is called website approach, and this is called resource based. Right? So in the resource based approach, what I'm saying, the details is already there. It will just select the details. And resource based approach, find for which verb? For the verb I'm talking about, HTTP verb called get. Right? So if it is get, if you are using the HTTP verb as get, what I'm saying in case of resource based URI approach, that please provide me the details about resume ID 20 in the admin group. Right? So get is used to select the data from the database. Whatever value is there on the database, using get HTTP verbs, I can get the details. Using resource-based URI approach. So using get, you are not going to update anything in the database. The value that is already there, you are going to select that. Using that get, you are not going to update anything in the database. Right? So what is already there in the database, you are going to select using get. That is the purpose. See, get means it is used to select the value from the database. It is used to select. Right? Okay. Now we have another one HTTP verb that is called post. Right? That is called post. So see if I'm going to write the same URI using post, how it look like. Let's say the second scenario. Control C, Control V. Fine. So what I want to use post. What does it mean by post? Post means creating a new message or creating a new resume. Create new resume. That is post. Creating a new resume, that is post. So what I've given here, let's see, as I'm writing here like this 30. So what I want to create, I'm saying an instruction, please create the resume ID 30 that is already not there in the database. Please create a resume ID 30 in the admin group. So I want to create a new resume for a particular participant or a particular employee. So to create a particular resource, we use the HTTP verb that is post. Post is used to create something. Fine, right? This is how we can use post. Fine. Now put, we can use another HTTP verb called put. So purpose of this put HTTP verb is to update any message or update any resume. Update resume. So if I want to update an existing resume, then I should go for put. So you can copy this complete line, Control C. I want to update an existing resume. So let's say I want to update the resume that is already there, number 20, it is already there. So I want to update that existing resume ID for a particular person in admin domain or admin group. So I can use one particular HTTP verb called put. Put means his current address, assume his address got changed. So I want to change his current address or email ID or contact number. So then I can use this put HTTP verb, right? Similarly, we have another HTTP verb that is called delete. So if I'm going to use delete here, delete. So the delete means already that resource is there that I want to delete. So resource is 20 is already there that I want to delete. So I can use delete HTTP verb to delete that particular resource, delete that particular resume ID from this admin group, right? So these are 4 HTTP verbs generally used in your resource-based URI in REST web service implementation. But if you see, out of these 4 HTTP verbs, only this get HTTP verb is for select. That means if you are going to use get HTTP verb, you are not going to update anything on the backend. Whereas in case of post, put, or delete, you are doing some updation on the backend. You are doing some updation on the backend. You're doing some right. But in case of get, you are not doing any updation on the backend. You are just selecting. That's why we say that get is one type of read-only. Get is used. Get is one type of read-only HTTP verb, whereas other HTTP verbs is defined as a write-only HTTP verbs. Get is defined as a read-only HTTP verbs, and whereas others HTTP verbs is defined as a write-only HTTP verbs. That is the difference between read-only HTTP verb and write-only HTTP verbs, right? So this is how we can use HTTP verbs in our resource-based URI approach, right? Okay. Now this is just we have given some example of scenario. Now we have to understand that how this HTTP verbs actually used to send some data to the server, or to update some data in the server, to create a particular data inside the server, or to delete a particular data in the server, right? So you should know how we can use these HTTP verbs in our REST web service implementation. Correct? Okay. But before